Everybody's favorite time of the year, the 2024 Watches and Wonders. Now, before we begin with what Rolex will produce, let's take a step back and recap what they discontinued in 2023, as well as the new models and how they performed on the market over the past year. Rolex did a pretty much what I like to call a clean sweep of some of their most desired models, obviously the Daytona, obviously the John Mayer, and did a facelift across a lot of their models. And that caused a lot of, I would say, turmoil in the market, because what had happened was they took a seemingly perfect watch, a Panda Daytona, let's call it, reference 116500LN in ceramic, which most actually believe is the greatest Daytona ever produced, and they made a facelift. And within that facelift, there has been a lot of speculation on whether they like it or they don't. With a MSRP of $15,100, which is about a 10% increase from its predecessor, the current market price for a brand new Panda Daytona is $35,000, which is only about 10% north of its counterpart 116500, which is pretty interesting. The skinnier sub-dial black is not really to their liking. In fact, there's a lot of pictures out there on Instagram comparing a 116500 and the 126500 together, and most people will go with the original version. Now, for the black one, the black 126500 is actually, in my opinion, a better looking watch than the 116500 black. So moving on from there, you had a few changes in the 126505 line, the 126508 line, as well as the 126509 line. Now, there's obviously a few different dial variations, but for the most part, they're seemingly the same watch. So with the MSRP for 126505 at $42,500, the current market price is $52,000 with an availability of high. What I thought was going to be a home run for Rolex actually ended up being more like a base hit. So that would be the Platona, or the king of Rolex watches, reference 126506, and with what I believe is the coolest feature of that watch, an exhibition case back. Now, when they released this news, I thought it was going to blow the watch market apart. And seemingly it did in the beginning, with initial prices being offered at $150,000, not for the diamond dial, but for the regular dial. The price has kind of settled in around $115 to $120, which is only about a 10% difference from its 116506 counterpart, which has been out since 2013. Also, the fact that platinum Daytonas or platinum watches in general are a very low allocation. I really thought the price was going to be a little bit higher, so I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. Now, moving on to what I believe was my favorite, let's say, and best released, was the Yacht-Master 42 in titanium. Now, it's obviously not really part of Rolex's, I would say, history or brand to use exotic elements. And I'm not saying titanium is a very exotic element like a ceramic or a carbon or NTPT like Richard Mille uses, but titanium is not really something that they use in their watches. And with the introduction of this titanium 42, I really thought it was going to perform well. And in fact, it is probably in the current catalog the highest premium over retail. With the MSRP price of $14,000, we recently sold one last week for $47,000. Now, in regards to availability, we constantly have requests for them and we constantly go out there and looking for them, and there really are not a lot of them out there. So I would say the availability level on the titanium Yacht-Master 42 is very low. Also a watch that I'm going to get for myself soon. GMT-Master 2, Return of Yellow Gold, the reference 126718GRNR in a full yellow gold case, with a faded bezel, which I thought was actually a really cool look for Rolex. Retail price of $38,900. Its current market price is $45,000. In other words, it's kind of trading around retail plus whatever MSRP is. And that's kind of where I thought the watch would settle in. You know, I didn't really think it was going to be a 2X retail piece, simply for the fact that historically yellow gold models haven't really traded at that much of a premium. But it's still good to know that there is enough demand for the product for it to be over retail. And I think it's a wonderful watch, especially considering that Rolex is kind of paying homage to the yellow gold GMTs of the 70s and 80s. And then its two-tone counterpart, the reference 126713, with the MSRP price of $16,450, is current market price at $20,000, so that does have a little bit of a premium with a very high availability and certainly a lot of demand. Really good looking watch. I'm really glad that Rolex did that. Now moving on to the Explorer with the reference 224270 with a new 40mm size, and this watch did exactly what I thought it was going to do. It was not going to ruffle any feathers. It was one of those very safe plays from Rolex. It was a handoff to the running back for a few yards. That's really all it was. They've made Explorers in 39s, they've made Explorers back in the 36, and it didn't really pop off, but the 40mm I think is a great size for that watch. But the MSRP at $7,700 has the watch trading at pretty much exactly that. So that's kind of where the Explorer has been, and I think that's where it's going to be going. Now, Skydweller. Okay, so this is Rolex's most complicated watch, and to my knowledge, it is the lowest allocation watch across all their lines. They kind of did something with the movement not a lot of purists really care or talk about, but what they did do was they came out with the green dial. And as we all know, over the past 5 years, green has been the it dial, right? Green is beautiful. It used to be blue, but now it's green. They came out with it with a retail price of $14,000, just a little bit over $14,000, trading at 30 grand. And the availability on that watch is super low. We constantly get requests for this watch, and it's always tough to come across. And every time we do come across one, there's no shelf life on it whatsoever. And there's always that toss-up. Do you go with the Jubilee or do you go with the Oyster? That's always the top question, but the Jubilee does bring a little bit more of a premium than the Oyster. And then finally, I've been saying this for years, the 336935 rose gold sky with the blue dial. I've been asking Rolex to do this. I've been asking them in my heart, I've been asking them in my head, and they finally came out with it. And when it originally dropped, the watch was 90 grand and has been settling somewhere around 70,000, which is kind of a healthy, I would say, number considering its retail price is over $50,000, and the amount of allocation that's out there, there really is not a lot considering Skydweller, as I mentioned earlier, is a low allocation, and in a precious metal with a blue dial, I think it's really trading at a very healthy level, and I think it's going to be around there for the time being. What Rolex also did in their Skydweller line is they made an Oysterflex strap for the Skydweller in white gold, and to be quite honest, there really isn't that much demand for it. However, I do prefer the white gold one to the yellow or rose gold one, and I cannot really understand why, besides the fact that it looks a little more sporty to me. In other words, I said the same thing even though I'm wearing a yellow gold Paul Newman Oysterflex. I do prefer the white gold one just because it's a little more understated and it's a little more sporty, and that's kind of where that white gold Skydweller lives, in my opinion. And the MSRP is $42,700, and that's pretty much exactly where the market price is on that model. Now here's a very interesting one, the Perpetual 1908. With the discontinuation of Cellini's, that was kind of their way to make something elegant and make something dressy. There really hasn't been that much talk about it. On the dealer space, there's not a lot of them traded, there's not a lot of them being requested, and when you need to go out and find one, it's gonna run you somewhere around MSRP, which is $22,000 for the yellow gold and $23,300 for the white gold. So the current market price is around retail, however, availability is not that high on them. Here's my favorite one to talk about, the OP124300, and I'm going to specifically talk about the 41mm because that seems to be the most popular, most traded one, just like its Tiffany counterpart. Like, in my opinion, this was what the aftermarket cash grab was going to be. It was going to be this specific watch. This very bold, very artsy looking Art Deco or avant-garde piece, even by Rolex standards, that I thought a lot of dealers were going to grab onto, hold for dear life, and ask crazy money. And that's exactly what they did in the beginning. But I saw a rapid descent in the market price of this watch, with the first one coming out at $50,000. Has now settled around $20,000. Now, this is one of those watches where you either really like it or really don't like it. So when that happens in the market, when there's a watch that has so much, I would say, controversy in terms of like and dislike, you're not really gonna get a really high multiple on it, even though the retail price of that watch is $6,400, and with a high availability, may I say. The new Diamond Date 36 with the stone dials, and we're gonna talk about the Venturine dial in green, we're gonna talk about the orange carnelian dial, and the texture turquoise dial. Now guys, look, what we saw during COVID is we saw crazy premiums for ladies' watches because everything else was a crazy premium. But these watches nowadays are still holding much better than they used to as ladies' pieces, especially with diamonds and a very high MSRP price. But with market prices of $80,000, $70,000, and $80,000 respectfully, it's a little bit over retail just simply for the fact that the allocation of these pieces and these stones is low. And where the market goes from here, we shall have to see. The craziest watch of 2023 from Rolex is by far the Date 36 Emoji. Now, when this thing dropped, this was the biggest speculation on the aftermarket in terms of where the price would be. And when the first one dropped at $275,000, I thought that was nuts. In fact, it was in rose gold, 128235, that dropped at $275,000. And usually when that happens on the aftermarket, that sets the tone for where the watch trades from then on. Because who really knows what the price of that watch is going to be? I think the retail somewhere around, I don't know, 50,000, let's say, right? So if you get that watch and you're the first one to have it, you can literally dictate whatever you want for that. And as I've seen lately, there really has not been a lot of them on the market. And in white, yellow, and rose gold, the cheapest I've seen them, period, has been $225,000, which is about a 5x premium. So that's super interesting, and we'll see where that goes from there. I don't know if they discontinue it. I don't know if it's a one-year run. I really hope it's going to be a one-year run, because that just makes for whoever has that watch to make it even that much more special, that emoji dial. So finally, I wanted to get back to the biggest speculation over the past 5 years in the watch market, period, and that has been the John Mayer green dial. Year over year, they were talking about discontinuing it, drove the price up, drove the price down, drove the price up, and drove the price down again. And finally in 2023, Rolex decided to pull the plug. The day that it was discontinued, I went right out there in the market to see what was going on with those John Mayers, and they went from the $80,000 price point that they were trading at back up to 110, and within a matter of no time, right back down to 80,000 below. So you're looking at John Mayers today trading somewhere around 65 to 80,000 pending condition. As we know, the watch has been out since 2016, so there is a good amount of availability out there. So you're looking to pay somewhere around 65,000 for a white card John Mayer, or upwards of 80,000 plus if something is, let's say, 2023 or even 2024 new old stock. And with the discontinuation of the John Mayer came discontinuation of the 116509, or the junior John Mayer, as they say, the white gold blue Daytona, which I actually personally prefer to the yellow gold green. And that's kind of settled in around 45,000. You also had discontinuation of the old rose gold 116505 chocolate, and that's kind of trading around 52 to 55,000 pending condition. And then of course the discontinuation of the Meteorites, which I thought was a phenomenal move by Rolex. When you release a watch like that has a very exotic dial, I don't think it should be really a high availability piece. And that's exactly where Rolex kept that. They kept a very, very, very short allocation, very short production run of those models, which kind of makes it just that much more special for the people that own it. And what I've seen with those Meteorites has been pretty consistent in terms of market pricing. You have the rose gold, you have the yellow gold, the white gold, all trading, let's say, at the top market price right now of 90,000. And on a bracelet, the most expensive one I've seen is in white gold, trading around 120, the yellow gold at 110, and the rose gold at 115. That's what you're going to be looking to somewhere around there to pay for a brand new Meteorite Daytona. And last but not least, discontinued Rolex Milgauss models. And if you want to look from a year prior to where they're trading today, it's pretty much exactly the same. I mean, look, you're going to be looking to pay somewhere between $10,000 for a pre-owned and $13,000 for a new model, and that's kind of where I think things go right now with the Milgauss. You know, Milgauss has always been that one model that's kind of the stepbrother to the Submariner, stepbrother to the GMT and models alike, where it's something sporty. But you know, people who buy the Milgauss are the guys that want to buy a watch that separates themselves from the bunch, right? It's a little bit different. It's not the most popular model, but I think it's actually a very, very underrated model, because I think the Z Blue dial on the Milgauss is one of the best looking dials that Rolex ever made. So it's interesting to see in 2024 if they do some type of, I don't know if it's a re-release of a Milgauss or a model similar to, which kind of separates itself from the Datejust and Submariners and GMTs that are readily available everywhere. So that's actually one thing that I'm looking forward to in 2024, to see if they do some type of re-release of a Milgauss or something like that. But anyway, guys, we're super excited for Watches and Wonders 2024. That's coming out in a few weeks, and the market is buzzing. Comment below on what you think is going to happen in 2024. Thank you so much for watching. Click the like button, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the next market update.